All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to go on an epic journey, a 5,000-year trip through human innovation to trace the incredible path of technology that has literally built the world we live in.
So it's a huge question, right? How in the world did we get from a simple wooden disk to a planet spanning, interconnected web of information? What were those key inventions, those big moments that paved the way? Let's find out. So take a look at this. Four monumental leaps. But the thing to notice here, the really wild part, is how the time between these breakthroughs gets shorter and shorter and shorter. That's because technology builds on itself. Every new invention is a stepping stone for the next one. And this accelerating pace, well, that's the engine of human progress. Okay, so let's rewind. Our story starts at the very beginning, the dawn of civilization itself. This is when we first started forging the foundational tools that gave humanity, for the first time, real control over the physical world. You know, when we think wheel, we probably think of a cart or a car. But back around 3500 BCE, it was so much more than just a way to get around. It was about understanding a core concept, rotational mechanics. And that single idea unlocked everything from the potter's wheel to trade carts and, yeah, even war chariots that completely changed the face of battle. And check out this before and after, it's a huge difference. The plow didn't just dig up dirt. What it really did was create a surplus of food. And that one single change meant we could stop being nomadic hunter-gatherers and start building settled civilizations. All of a sudden, not everyone had to be a farmer, which led to specialized jobs, artisans, rulers, priests. Society as we know it began right there. So now you've got these complex societies. How do you manage them? How do you keep track of everything? Well, you need to store information. And early writing was basically humanity's first hard drive. It was a technology that let us record laws, track trade, and write down our history, making sure that knowledge wasn't lost and to be passed down. So these foundational tools, the wheel, the plow, writing, they set the stage perfectly for our next era. This is when empires like Greece and Rome came along and started to systematize engineering, building societies on a scale that nobody had ever seen before. It's really cool when you compare the Greeks and the Romans, because you see two totally different philosophies. The Greeks, with their marble, were obsessed with aesthetics and precision. Think of the Parthenon. The Romans, on the other hand, with their game-changing invention of concrete, were all about practicality and massive scale. They were building the infrastructure to run an empire. And this is just a brilliant example of that Roman focus on scale. You can honestly think of the Roman roads as the internet of the ancient world. It was this massive physical network that connected a vast empire, letting armies, goods, and ideas flow at a speed that was just unimaginable before. It's what held the whole thing together for centuries. So the Romans mastered physical networks, but the next great leap forward, well, that required us to master the networks of knowledge and energy. And this era, this one would change everything. Just try to imagine this. Before 1440, if you wanted a book, a scribe had to copy the whole thing by hand. It could take months, and the audience was tiny. Then, Gutenberg's printing press arrives. Suddenly, you can print hundreds of copies in weeks. This was a literal information explosion that fueled the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the scientific revolution. The key word here is efficiency. Yeah, there were early steam engines, but it was James Watt's big improvement, that separate condenser, that really unlocked their power. All of a sudden, factories didn't have to be built next to rivers anymore. You could build them anywhere. And just like that, the Industrial Revolution was off and running, powering everything. All that new industrial power set the stage for our next act, the digital revolution. And this was all about miniaturizing that power, shrinking it down, and putting it directly into the hands of individuals. And wow, just look at how fast things started moving. In 47, the transistor replaces the big, clunky vacuum tube. By the 50s, the integrated circuit jams a bunch of transistors onto one tiny chip. In 69, ARPANET, the precursor to our internet, goes online. And by 1975, the first personal computer kit was being sold. This was world-changing stuff happening at lightning speed. And this quote just captures that cultural shift perfectly. Computers stopped being these giant machines that only big corporations or governments owned. The whole idea was to flip that, to reimagine the computer as a democratic tool that could empower every single person to create, to learn, and to connect. Which brings us right here, to today, to our completely connected world. A world where all these technologies we've talked about have converged and are now pushing us toward the next great frontier of innovation. Think about it. That smartphone in your pocket isn't just one invention. It's the convergence of hundreds of them. It's your phone, your library, your map, your camera, and a super powerful computer, all stemming from the very technologies we've just journeyed through. So what's next? We're looking at things like artificial intelligence, systems that can actually learn and reason, and the Internet of Things, this huge network of connected everyday objects. But as we innovate, we also face new challenges. We have to start having some serious conversations about things like privacy and security. And that leads us to one final big thought. For the last 5,000 years, technology has given us the power to build our world, to shape our societies in ways our ancestors could have never dreamed. So the only question that really matters now is, what world will we choose to build next?